There you go. Yeah, like I was saying, Paz, I'm not that familiar with Warhammer lore, I've been binging some videos though, um, and like I'm quite fascinated by the idea of the hive cities. That's like I don't know, like it tickles like a theory cell part of my brain, similar to like Kowloon Walled City. But we'll discuss it because it's integral to the film that we're going to review. But anyways, I'm here with my friend Paz. I've been told that he is a Warhammer 40k expert, and I've been pressed by another friend to review the fan film Hell's Reach. And so, yeah. But if you wanted to give your general introduction, like what you do, uh, you know, as a poster, how I just, what's your favorite color? How long have you been alcoholic? What token do you have?
Sure.
Yeah. I make the same stupid, corny joke with every guest. I don't know why, but it's just, yeah.
My name is Dexter. I go pseudonymously by Paz online. I am part of the podcasting collective known as Timeline Earth. I also own and operate the Scarlet Thread Society Book Club, a monthly review of conspiracy literature.
Oh, nice.
My favorite color is green, and I am not an alcoholic, but I am originally from Wisconsin, despite living in Pennsylvania now.
There you go. That's what conspiracy literature have you been covering lately?
The latest unit we did was actually on the existence of the ancient giants in prehistoric America and other parts of the globe.
That's allegedly they say that U.S. troops in Afghanistan redacted one, and there's that famous illustration where it's very funny, the one soldier, the one Navy SEAL was going, it's like he's confused. But no, there's many theories about the ancient giants thing. I mean, a lot of people conclude that they were Nephilim. So, but what is your research? Yeah, what has your research pulled you towards?
I have always thought that that's a very reasonable conclusion, just given my Christian background and the way things just seem to kind of line up very nicely with the biblical narrative of what these things are, especially given later accounts more into modern history. It just keeps pointing that direction repeatedly. So, despite the bias of my own theories, I tend to think most of my book club agrees with me in that analysis.
Yeah, and some people say that they were part of perhaps ancient root races or so, like Thuns or whatever. But I mean, that doesn't conflict with the Nephilim theory, though.
Not at all.
Yeah. So anyway, well, maybe another time
It's not what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, we can get to that another time. But anyway, so Warhammer 40k. I was actually fascinated by this film, Hell's Reach, but I heard from other people that there were better fan made films than this one, but I thought this one was pretty good. But so take it away with the general overview. Essentially, the Astartes, or rather the what are they called? The Black Templars. They're charged to protect this hive city in Hell's Reach from the invading orcs. And the air brigade doesn't go very well. There's like basically a sea of orcs that they have to fight off. But it means something incredibly significant for a space marine or an Astartes to like essentially complete their last mission, if you know what I mean. So take it away, Paz. Like, what does all this mean, and what is the sort of like? Because it's very weird how like in 40k there's like a lot of it's sci-fi in terms of there being technology, but that technology I noticed is integrated a form of spirituality that speaks to sort of like a Kshatriya warrior caste, and so they take it as a sacred obligation. So, what is the origins, I guess, of this particular battle in the Warhammer 40k universe, and what's its significance?
So the thing to remember about Warhammer 40K in general, it is not the origin of the concept of grimdark media, but it is the current day's standard bearer for it. The central conceit of the setting is that all hope is lost. There's never been hope, and there never will be hope. So, what do you do, and how do you and humanity more broadly respond to a lack of hope?
Mm.
One of the core concepts is that humanity has already experienced its technological golden age, and anything they have going for them is the misremembered inheritance of a time when there was still hope. Now, the Black Templars in particular are a chapter, a warrior brotherhood of the Space Marines in lore in the film called Astartes. And their whole deal is explicit religious fervor, right?
Yeah.
And the film hinges on one of their characters in particular, the Reclusiarch Grimaldus. And the film actually opens on his elevation to this office.
Mm-hmm.
And what the Reclusiarch is it's the chief morale officer of the chapter of the Brotherhood. And it's a position that he'd been groomed for, but he was brand new to it. And so you have this warriors of faith-based brotherhood, and their primary chaplain, their primary leader, the leader of their faith, the leader of their warrior cult from a spiritual perspective, is basically a greenhorn, despite having been fighting these battles for 200 years. Mm-hmm. Now, the actual conflict of Hell's Reach is his first engagement in this role. And as you said, it is an orcish siege of a hive city. The hive cities being, so on the cultural right, we like to talk about bugs, bugmen, hives, hive cities.
Yeah,
it's something we've actually aped from this setting, and I don't know how many people really realize that. Mm-hmm. But they're basically Judge Dredd style mega cities where you can cram millions and billions of people into a handful of square miles and literally pack them in like bug hives. That's why they're called.
Yeah, it makes Kowloon Walled City look like a green open pasture. Like that's how many square density people there are in these hive cities. Yeah, but take it away.
So this one in particular, they are charged to defend, is a major defense manufacturing hub. It turns out armored vehicles for the uncountable armies of men across the galaxy. Of course, in the lore, in the story, there's thousands of other ones of these same exact thing, but they are charged to defend this one from an alien invasion. And as you said earlier in the beginning here, it kind of goes to shit for them immediately because the battle in orbit is lost almost immediately, meaning they will, in fact, face alien invasion. So that's the setup, right? You have this spiritual leader, this morale officer of these beyond human, superhuman warriors. He's on his first assignment, and it's an apocalyptic level alien siege, which is a simple enough premise for any piece of science fiction work, but it is there's a lot more nuance within the setting for people who are into Warhammer already and kind of know the specifics of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm. Now, from what I've read, the Black Templars, they are sort of like the religious fanatics of the worshipping of the Cosmic Emperor. Is he Galactic Emperor of the
God Emperor of Man? Yeah,
the God Emperor of Man. And the Astartes are sort of like the official authority that sort of administers from afar all of these different planets with these hive cities that more or less kind of run autonomous. It's sort of like, it's kind of like actual like space fascism in that like, all these hive cities in the administration, they have some sort of autonomy. There's like a very strict hierarchy that sort of ranges.
So people like to say it's an aping or a commentary on fascism.
Yeah, like Robert Heinlein.
When Games Workshop first developed it, it absolutely explicitly was. But
Mm-hmm.
as further iterations of the corporate leadership have continued to develop this, I think it's actually far better understood as one of the more clever examinations of the feudal system
Yes,
in
exactly.
media
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point, Paz, because a lot of these administrators in these hive cities, some of them are more like lax than others, some of them more stricter than others, some of them kind of are like royal families. But they do kind of operate like more or less autonomously, except for like when the Astartes come by and they sort of have to like check things out and administer resources and so forth. But apparently, these hive cities have incredible importance, even though what they're doing is essentially destroying the planets that they're on, because their whole purpose is to mine the resources till there's nothing left, and then the cities collapse. Like literally, it's literally like a living organism. It's like a superstructure that has a life cycle. But apparently, the defense of these cities and the resources that are obtained for the empire, they're so vitally important that the actual citizens of the cities, as we'll see in Hell's Reach, don't matter that much. I mean, they're like,
No, they are
yeah,
nothing when weighed against the existing machinery, because the machinery could not be recreated if they had to.
yeah,
You can
exactly.
always import a new population from a neighboring planet, but you cannot replace these giant mining rigs or these atmospheric recycling devices.
Yeah,
So these cities are instituted with misunderstood, lost technology, and they leach these planets dry. And the humans, they're just there to literally grease the machines.
and that's it. And they can live in smog and cancers like the common cold. And there's actually well, I know that there's plague cities filled with zombies, and but apparently the power of the Space Marine is, I remember this one comment, it was on a battle simulator video, but it didn't make any sense, because in the mechanics of the game Battle Simulator, Space Marines are way weaker than they actually are. Apparently a team of 6 Marines could take over a normal human planet on their own. Like, that's how
So
powerful they are. Yeah.
that's one of the things that doesn't really have an answer from the perspective of Games Workshop, the
Hmm.
company that owns the IP. The relative power of a group of space marines is basically determined by the author writing any given book and then what their
Mm.
editorial feedback team tells them. There are examples where it takes 5 to 10 marines to conquer a planet, and examples where hundreds die in a single battle. It's
Wow.
entirely relative, based entirely on the narrative needs of whatever media you're consuming. Though that being said, once you consider it in universe, it's not unreasonable that 10 Marines could take a poorly run planet or a
Hmm.
primitive planet necessarily. But as you scale up in relative technology and political organization and whatnot, obviously it's going to take more of them, because at a certain point, even superhuman soldiers genetically bred for war are still just individual soldiers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We'll get to the makeup of each individual soldier. Apparently, they're genetically mutated into their suit or something like that, or their souls are entrapped in some form of machinery sometimes, like those huge mech ones. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we can get into that right now if you'd like, or a
Yeah,
little
sure.
bit
Go ahead.
later.
Yeah.
It's the standard space marine, in so much as any of them can be standard, right?
Hmm.
They are taken from specific recruiting worlds while they are still prepubescent, right? 11, 12-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And they are trained in these fortress monasteries. And as they begin to go through puberty and as they're training, they are slowly surgically implanted with additional organs that turn them into these space marines as their bodies adapt to these additional genetically modified organs.
Oh my God. Like, apparently they can filter out smog. They can
They have
They
a
have super
gland in
healing
their mouth that
recovery.
lets them spit acid. They
Yeah.
genetically do not need to sleep. All sorts of absolutely wild stuff going on with it. And it's bizarre, it's creepy, it's disgusting, and that is explicitly the point of it, right?
This is like eugenics gone awry, basically. Like
These things that would and should be considered monstrosities are our only hope of surviving in a galaxy that hates us. That gets back to the idea of a grim, dark media theme. There is no hope, and this is our response to a lack of hope to make these false angels, right?
mm-hmm.
And you'll see them even called that throughout Warhammer media. They are the angels of death. They are the Emperor's angels. And they're clearly not. They're genetic monstrosities created through science that the people of the humanity, the people of the Imperium of Man, just don't understand.
Yeah. Now I understand why a huge part of the E-Right like absolutely is obsessed with Warhammer 40k. Like this is like the Bronze Age warrior vision of the future.
Yeah, for the people who are into that sort of Bronze Age vibe, that's exactly what's going on here, right? There's a heavy. So the Black Company, right? Glenn Cook was the author. Does that sound right?
I think so. Yeah.
That was the origination of grimdark, but this is absolutely grimdark as it is today, right? There is only war is literally the tagline of the setting, and it strives very hard to stay in line with that. You should not come out of it optimistic. You should come out of it angry or sad or pissed off. There's no hope. Will you fight anyways, or will you curl up and die? And I think that sentiment, why this is so popular on the cultural right, is because a lot of us kind of either consciously or subconsciously feel like we've already been living that way in our normal day-to-day life for years already.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But it's very funny though how but we'll actually get to the movie. Trust me, folks, we'll get to the movie. But like the backstory of Warhammer 40k, from what I understand, is that humanity is sufficiently advanced enough, but then there's this cosmic wormhole portal to the nether regions of the universe that then is opened up to these cosmic horrors that humanity then has to fight. And we colonize different planets of space. We encounter alien species. And there's always this like looming threat that the universe itself wants us redacted. And so is that more or less correct? And because I know that, and there's also like themes of like fallen, like there was a greater previous golden age that had all this crazy technology that we don't even understand. And so it's like we're almost like in the like this version of humanity in Warhammer 40k is almost like the Kali Yuga era, where they exist like post collapse, and the Emperor has to like regain order. If I'm correct, yeah.
So within the setting, right? So once you immerse yourself, once you are working with the constraints put on you by the creators without examining it at the meta level, there's the 3 dimensions of reality, right? Mm. And the 4th dimension is called the warp in Warhammer.
The warp, yes, the warp.
And this is literally just hell, right? The conceit is that every human and most but not all sentient species influence this 4th dimension through their thoughts and emotions. And because not just humanity, but every sentient race is so inherently flawed, that makes this emotionally charged 4th dimension literally nothing but hell. It's just hell as we understand it. Now, the problem is due to the limits of technology, both within the setting and frankly, probably in our real world too, to achieve any sort of faster than light travel, you need to enter this 4th dimension. You need to sail through hell, literal hell. But the more often you do this, the more you wear away the barriers of reality and sort of blend this psychic 4th dimension into the actual 3 dimensions of physical reality.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's where you get a lot of that. And as to the other thing you mentioned, that gets deep into the Warhammer lore. There was a 50, 60-something long book series called The Horus Heresy.
Oh my God! How much lore is there? This is insane.
I could give you 40, 50 hours of content just on Warhammer lore if you wanted to make it an ongoing series. But the quick summary is the Emperor of Mankind has not always been half dead on life support.
Mhm.
During the era of the Horus Heresy, he had hundreds of thousands of space marines out conquering the galaxy for him. A full half of them fell to the predations of demons from this fourth psychic dimension I'm talking about and betrayed him. And that is why, in the setting of Warhammer 40K, everything is awful because they started an apocalyptic, galaxy spanning civil war.
Oh my God. My friend Remus is actually, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's very familiar with Warhammer 40K. I remember when I used to be on that other podcast, we had an episode and it was like 5 hours long, but we like just barely scratched the surface. And there's people like devote their whole YouTube careers to Warhammer 40K. But you mentioned how essentially integrating with this hell space is vital to actually facing the challenges of cosmic horror. Are you familiar with the Jean-Michel Greer concept of catabolic collapse in terms of technology?
I am not, actually. You might have to walk me through that.
Well, essentially, I mean, I'm butchering it, but essentially, he's like kind of pulling in the opposite direction of Nick Land in that, which actually it's very funny because Nick Land's interview with BAP recently, he was talking about war being the mother of creation, war being God itself, which is very like, well, that's kind of like 40K. But essentially, Jean-Michel Greer, he says that in order to facilitate the proliferation of advanced technology, in terms of just raw human potential and resources that are given to us, unless you want to even like factor in like mining comets or whatever, the sheer amount of resources it would take to run like supercomputing beyond our capacity now would require the essential eating up of all of our resources, and that wouldn't catch up in time to a singularity event where humanity could integrate with technology to such a fundamental degree. But I guess in the Warhammer universe, they sort of stave off that by integrating with the warp and whatever it provides in terms of energy or technology, or I guess you could say cosmic mana. So yeah.
There's an element of that, right? There are certainly factions and teams and groups within the Warhammer setting that can and actively do that.
Mm-hmm.
The Emperor of Man himself is one example of that. He is the greatest psychic in all of humanity, in all of humanity's history. And the life support system that keeps him alive in his half-dead state on Earth requires the sacrifice of 1,000 psychics every day just to keep it going.
Oh my God.
So there are examples of that, but the Imperium of Man, mankind, humanity, the good guys in general, are very superstitious about these technologies, rightfully so. And that's how you get organizations like Warhammer's infamous Inquisition that will condemn an entire planet to destruction by orbital bombardment just because there's 3 or 4 psychics running around without permission.
Wow. It seems a common theme in Warhammer 40K is like the vast and sheer and almost unable to contemplate level of resource expenditure on these planets and on the sort of mission in general. Like the fact that you could sacrifice just 1,000 psychics a day to keep the Emperor on life support. The fact that these planets, like these hive cities, literally eat up the core essence of each planet. Then they collapse. The hive city collapses in itself. It's almost like mind-boggling the amount of resources that are expended. It's almost very much Bataille.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is deliberately gratuitous and unimaginable in scale. That is definitely a deliberate creative direction choice.
Yeah, it's very much like Bataille's Accursed Share, but like on steroids. It's very like it's like a mind-boggling level, and the fact that like I remember watching one video of someone breaking down the economic system of hive cities. It's not necessarily like capitalism there's no like unified currency. There's like a barter system. There's like
No, it goes back to, right, it's a commentary on feudalism.
yeah,
You trade whatever good you have to the next planet over, and as long as the Imperium writ large gets its cut in what's literally called a tithe, they basically leave you alone after
yeah.
that. As long as you pay your tithe to the emperor, you're fine. Right?
Yeah.
It's not capitalism. It is a feudal trade economy.
Yeah, but what's so interesting about it is that it is like I guess you could say the anti Star Trek. Like Star Trek is very much like, okay, there's no capitalism, but it's like almost like glorious luxury space communism, and like humanity solved all its problems and we're all together, man. But like here it's like, no, actually
Here
space
it's nihilistic space feudalism.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and it's very funny because I remember watching quite a bit of, because I said this on stream before. Like I grew up in a Star Trek family rather than a Star Wars family. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my old man was always a Trekkie. So like whenever they had to confront cosmic horrors, it was markedly different than in Warhammer 40k, where I think Warhammer 40k is like, I know nothing is realistic here, but like it's I could say in terms of psychology, it's more of a realistic approach or response to what lays upon, like what lays beyond us in the universe. I think than this like stupid like, let's have a story with no conflict because humanity got rid of all conflict and we live in communism. It's like, no, it's not reality. Yeah.
The idea that you could exist without conflict it's way more farcical than anything a Warhammer writer could come up with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The most insane, ridiculous, gratuitous, violent, idiotic subplot a Warhammer writer could have is still more plausible than somehow being conflict free.
Yeah, exactly. But to get back to the story, so Grimaldus, he is, and the Black Templars are very interesting because they're religious fanatics. They almost go against the maxim of not worshiping the emperor as like a cult leader, but they also like, from what I know, they vaguely hide their numbers. So they sort of like fudge the rule of like, I think um, every guild or sect, they only have a certain limit of soldiers.
Yeah, each
Yeah,
chapter of Space Marines is allowed 1,000 men,
yeah,
and they are not supposed to worship the emperor.
yeah.
One of the other central jokes of Warhammer is that during the era of the Horus Heresy, while the Emperor was still alive, he insisted that he was not a god and that he not be worshipped as a god, despite being the most powerful psychic being in human history.
Mm-hmm.
By the time 40K rolls around, only Space Marines remember through their hypnotic, rather, their hypnotic training that he is not a god. So Space Marines are the only ones who don't worship this guy because he insisted to them that he not be worshipped. And the exception is the Black Templars. Common humanity worships the Emperor. The Black Templars worship the Emperor despite that they're not supposed to. And despite being limited to 1,000 men, there are an uncountable number of Black Templars, right? The editorial staff at Games Workshop has not put a number on them deliberately, just to set aside and make it specifically clear, hey, they threw out the rules with this one. There's more than 1,000 of them.
Yeah. And are the Black Templars specifically in charge of Inquisitions, or is it the Astartes in general?
No. The Inquisition, in terms of how Warhammer is set up, is in an entirely separate structure from the Astartes. The Astartes are just a branch of the Imperium's military. They basically get to say yes or no and take what they want.
Yeah.
Because they are a different part of the feudal structure. But the Inquisition answers to absolutely no one. They have no commanders outside of their own order. And this is another reason why it's a good commentary on feudalism, right?
Yeah.
Because, okay, yeah, nominally there's no one giving you orders. There's no one ahead of you in the power structure. but you still only have so many resources within your fief, right? You still only have so much clout. Everything is still explicitly a political negotiation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, my God, this is fascinating. But when it comes to you mentioned it comes through in the film Hell's Reach as well. When it is there a backstory on how humanity adopted various trance-like and psychic abilities and telekinesis? Is it just a latent potential that was rediscovered by humanity in this setting, or is it something that was cultivated over time? And like, because I'm trying to look at, okay, how do you jump? I mean, this is how many years in the future? 440,000 years.
Approximately 38,000 years from now.
So then we develop telekinesis and various latent spiritual abilities as the, like, from the dawn of the warp, or is it just that like, what is the process there?
So as there gets to be more of us, more of humanity, we are projecting more of our emotions and more of our thoughts into this hell dimension.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's sort of an occult concept. Like in Western esoterica, there's the idea of as above, so below, right?
Right.
When you act on something, it acts on you in turn. And that's sort of the thing that's going on here. As humanity expanded, as other races expanded, it became easier to develop these psychic talents until eventually those psychic talents were bred into us naturally, right? It was a genetic mutation that allows us to interact with spiritual hell.
Oh my God. Oh man. That's crazy. That's like I guess you could say in certain strains of Eastern thought, like Vedanta, like there is like the emphasis of conscious intention, but the fact that like there's a massive humanity, like as soon as we achieve exoplanetary existence, we go off world, we colonize the stars, kind of like that one Alex Jones ran from years ago, where he's like, we're gonna colonize the stars and that's our destiny. But as soon as that happens, it's almost as if like the conscious intention of humanity going exoplanetary, it's almost as if we develop these abilities because we do achieve the age of spiritual machines in this universe.
Well, so and that's one of the things, right? That takes us right back to the central theme of Warhammer 40K. Getting your destiny, embracing your fate is the worst possible thing that could happen to you, and you have no other choice.
Oh, kind of like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Like you have to do your duty, which is another thing too, which is the linchpin, I think, of this film, which is to fulfill one's duty. And so maybe we should get into what the exact role of the Space Marine is in terms of each battle, because it seems that it's very clear that you have the Spartan meets Viking warrior ethos, where, from what I understand, you have to pick one battle that you will sacrifice yourself for, and you will be known throughout history in the annals of history that you were the defender of Hell's Reach, or you were the defender of this planet XXYZ, whatever. And so is there like there's a vast significance from what I gather from that. So maybe you could go into like the sort of religious obligation of warfare that each Space Marine goes through, or they're indoctrinated into. Yeah.
There is a concept in Warhammer that is for the Space Marines specifically. This is their thing. None of the other factions or groups do it. They all have their own different concepts of honor and whatnot. But the Space Marines have something that's called the Oath of the Moment. And it is where a Marine or a group of Marines will go to their commanding officer, or in the case of Grimaldus, their morale officer. Grimaldus, in this fan film and in the story it's based on, serving as both the commander and the morale officer. And they will swear their oath of the moment, which is to say they will state their objective for a battle, but with a religious connotation and implication, right?
Yes.
And so Hell's Reach is essentially the story of Grimaldus, the newly promoted morale officer, swearing his oath of the moment on behalf of the warriors who serve him to defend the city. Right? That's why we see this where you're talking about. It is his oath of the moment that he will die at Hell's Reach, with the implication that he will die to defend it.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, he doesn't, but like his men do. But like,
the whole freaking hive collapses around him. There's your other spoiler, and yet he is somehow still standing.
Yeah.
So did he save Hell's Reach? I don't know. The orcs are gone, but he's standing in the rubble of it. So
that's what I mean. Which seems so fantastical is that it kind of is nihilistic, even though there's an immense religious connotation to it. Where, okay, you're sacrificing all of the people who are dying of disease and starvation and battle and bombing, but also like so there was this one moment where the salamanders came to relieve them in one battle, and the salamanders have a different ethos where actually they do care about the city's peoples, but then Grimaldus is like, oh, who cares? They're just civilians, right? But
and that's just it, right? Each group of Space Marines has a different warrior cult associated with their brotherhood. And the salamanders have a very unique place in the Warhammer lore in that they are specifically set aside as the group of Marines that will not cause human casualties, that wants to minimize human casualties, that actually wants to protect the people they were created to serve instead of just going in guns blazing to any given situation.
That's what I mean.
They are intentionally chosen as the contrast here, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of the film has Grimaldus discussing with the baseline human leadership, well, we can expect this many casualties of disease. Well, can your militia die well enough to protect this port for this long? Whereas if the salamander had been standing there instead, he would have been calling for an evacuation and putting the Marines at his command in the port instead. Or some such.
That's what I mean. And there was what was a very interesting aspect of it was, again, to go to the point about cosmic feudalism. Grimaldus is given these huge actuaries of resources, personnel, men, women, capacity for medical attention, diseases. You can expect, like, essentially, this group of people will be famined off. This group of people will succumb to disease, as you know, in medieval times, even in modern times, a lot of warfare is accompanied by famines and disease and lack of resources. I mean, even right to this
every
day,
command structure does this sort of arbitrage on human life, right?
Yes.
You go to an emergency room at a hospital and you'll be subjected to this process, just not at a global population level, which is explicitly what they're doing.
Yeah, which is very, to our like mindset, is kind of like bloodless and like even monstrous. But it's a necessity for the protection of the city itself, and so it's almost like the human occupancy of the city doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, at least not to the Black Templars. But there are also like human soldiers as well that do acts of heroism, and of course, they're expendable. They're just like auxiliaries. They they don't.
It doesn't necessarily follow the fan film and the story in direct chronological order, but that's an interesting point you brought up. And there was a moment towards the end, right, where Grimaldus is talking to one of the human auxiliaries that he met, and he asks, "Your love, did you find her?" And he says yes. What's not shown in the fan film, but is made clear in the book, is that obviously he found her corpse, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people say this is the most powerful moment of the book and in turn of the fan film. And it is a heart-twisting moment, right? Yeah. Because you feel bad for the soldier, and you also kind of feel bad for Grimaldus, because as a superhuman, genetically modified soldier monstrosity, he doesn't understand the emotional context.
Right.
Right. He thinks the soldier just found his love. Well, it's not that simple. So a lot of people think that's the peak, right? That's the moment of Hell's Reach. Personally, I prefer the moment that comes immediately after that, as Grimaldus is leaving the rubble of the city. He says, "We are judged in life for the evil we destroy." And I think that's one of just the hardest lines of all time.
Yeah.
But it's these sort of things that sort of illustrate exactly what you're talking about. This is what normal people are subjected to in this setting.
Yeah, and I guess if you're a genetically modified supermarine freak, that you don't really have the same. It seems like they're very stoic and they don't have the same emotional attachments. Is it just that? Was that sort of like a product of their breeding, like this very Spartan, like tutelage program from the time they're young, or is there actually like genetic modifications to their psyche to where they don't have the same emotional
that sort of
attachments?
psychological stuff. Obviously, any given author or writer in the organization can take it any way they want to. But as it's commonly understood, both in universe and at the meta level, that is a product of the hypnotic brainwashing they go through, not a result of the genetic manipulation.
Oh, I see. I see. And so essentially there's a necessity to breeding these super warriors, and anything else is sort of like any sort of loss of human life and any expenditure of resource, like that pales in comparison to the actual mission. Like, and from people don't know, we're talking about battles with potentially hundreds of millions of participants. Like it's like, and like, that meme about like a Chinese emperor wanted to go the Western Passage. It's 30 million people died. Like it's
and that's the actual reality of the setting, right? Because everything is happening on a planetary scale, even if you're only watching one aspect of it.
Yeah. So again, another like tremendous expenditure of both physical resources and human resources. And so I guess like, because I remember asking my friend Remus this when we did that stream many years ago, like, okay, do they have normal lives? Do they get married? Do they have children? He's like, yeah, they all do. But yet it's like in the background of, you are a part of the guild. You are like the coal miner, or you're the blacksmith, or you're like the tech guy. And it's like, that's what you do. That's your life purpose. It very much is like, from what I understand, a guild system where you're not like this beautiful, creative, individual human being with purpose, but rather
it doesn't matter how creative you are. You were born into the paper threshing clan. That's what you're going to go do, God damn it.
It's like, that's it. That's your life purpose. Yeah.
Your purpose is to make vellum. Get to it.
Yeah. Apparently they say in certain hive cities, though, there is like sometimes an ability, like a lower rank person who is uniquely creative or talented to like ascend to the top. But that's like very, very limited. And there is like almost like a royal family caste system. And there's criminals below.
That's thing, right? That's basically entirely at the discretion of the writer and the editorial board that then examines the book before publication. It is an infinitely large galaxy. The scale is explicitly and purposely big enough to allow these sort of exceptions if there's an interesting story to tell about it.
Yeah. But the point being is that human life is incredibly cheap. Like,
yes, by default, human life is the cheapest resource in the setting.
Oh my god. Yeah. And this bears out in this particular battle as well, because the whole city is besieged by these sea of orcs. And I think like, even though the Space Marines can cut through them like butter, I remember there was, especially in the beginning, in the first battle, the first day, there was a scene where the orcs were jumping on the tower, and it literally takes about 10 to 11 human soldiers to take one down, if they do it at all. But then the Space Marines could just come there and chop through them, and so I think that's like a good representation of scale. But so in the story, they're besieged by these orcs. They then have to go and find this hidden super weapon on the planet that their tech officer is trying his hardest to break through, but it's revealed that it's protected by a security system that is half technology and half almost psychical, that then warps and changes and mutates to defend against I forget what his name is, the tech officer, from
Just
like changing
Syrian, yeah.
the Syrian, to prevent him from actually breaking in and accessing the super weapon. Which again, spoiler alert, doesn't really make that much of a difference from what I recall. Yeah.
So what's going on there is the other reason that the Warhammer setting sucks so freaking bad. The reason everything is awful is because not just because every human being is psychically linked to hell. That doesn't
Yeah.
help. But the other part of it is there is an organization in the universe called the Mechanicus.
Yeah. Mechanicus.
And these are red-robed humans who strive to replace as much of their body as possible with machinery to become one with the machine god. They are idiots, and they are the most superstitious people possible, and yet they are also the most brilliant scientific minds left in existence.
Yeah.
They are the reason that all technology is failing, and they are also simultaneously the only reason any technology works at all. And so, to your point, part of the story is the Templars going to search for this super weapon. Well, it's hidden deep in this cathedral bunker belonging to this Mechanicus group, who've sealed it away behind incredibly complex encryption codes that to them have a spiritual significance. And he has to get this weapon out by deciphering their religious codes. And they make a point of talking about how these machine officers, the ones that are left on the planet, will be extremely upset with them because they are breaking into what is essentially a church.
Mm-hmm.
And despite the fact that the Templars themselves are also a religious warrior brotherhood, and despite the fact that the Mechanicus worships the Emperor as this machine god, and the Templars worship him as the God Emperor of humanity, it's this difference in their sect traditions that almost make this super weapons use non-viable, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're modern day tech bros when you think about it, but you know,
certainly people have in fact made that comparison, and there's something to that.
It's like Peter Thiel's like a Mechanicus. So there was this one scene where I forget her name, but the princess that is in this like mech cathedral super weapon, she has this dispute with Grimaldus because the super weapon needs to be blessed in order to work. How like what is I was kind of like I was kind of confused about the difference there, like the conflict. Like Grimaldus then has a falling out with her, but then she decides to help him anyways.
So
and she, yeah.
what's going on there, right? Is that what you're referencing is the Battle Titan, which
Yeah,
is
the Battle Titan.
a giant mecha suit, basically, that can be, depending on who you ask, anywhere from 60 to 600 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
Again, scale is fake in Warhammer. It's whatever the writer needs it to be. But every pilot of these machines is a member of this Mechanicus priesthood, right?
Oh,
They
I
have
see.
to be initiated into the mysteries of this cyber religion in order to operate those giant battle suits. So she's telling him, hey, I'm here fighting this battle with you. I took an oath to be in this battle with you, but the fellows of my religious order are not going to understand what you're doing here. Don't do it. And eventually she comes around because she understands the necessity of it.
Yeah.
And but that's actually exactly what I'm talking about, right? She doesn't get it at first. Eventually she comes to understand the necessity of it, but she points out that her co-religionists and the rest of the Mechanicus just won't understand.
And she's like this floating corpse in a vat that
yes, kept alive by nutrient sludge and mechanical interfaces.
Yeah, and she communicates through like a voice box. So then Grimaldus like essentially threatens the Titan, and but then she comes around eventually, and then I believe the Titan falls. Like, I don't know, how are these orcs so powerful? How did they go? They managed to like destroy a whole space fleet and destroy a Titan, and the super weapon doesn't really work. Like, to me, the orcs seem kind of primitive. Like, how do they achieve this level of warfare mastery? Like, how can they pilot these ships? And they
So
just seem like dumb animals.
the thing about orcs within the context of the Warhammer setting, right? How they function in Warhammer is that while humans have a slightly nuanced connection to the warp, to the
Yeah,
hell dimension, the orc connection to it is actually very explicit and very primitive and very simple. The
right.
more orcs you gather in one place, the more intelligent they become and the more powerful their connection to the warp. If they believe it, it bends reality to become that way. Not perfectly, not exactly, but enough that it's called the Waaagh effect within the setting.
Mm.
And if enough orcs believe it, it becomes how things are. So if they believe the color red makes their vehicles go faster, they will actually become faster the more orcs are around the red vehicle. And
Oh,
so
so yeah.
you have this idea where, yeah, obviously the orcs think they're bulletproof. Well, now there's 10,000 orcs here, and all of a sudden our laser guns are doing less damage to their hides. And
Oh,
so
interesting. Yeah.
the orcish technology is protected by the orcs' belief in it, which is a mirror of the Imperials, whereas it's debatable, right? One of the themes of it is, well, is this faith worth anything? For the Imperials, maybe it's just superstition, or maybe all this stuff does work.
Mm.
But for the orcs, who don't even have the intelligence capacity to understand it, it does just work because of their faith in it.
So it's almost like they can pilot. Sorry, they can do great feats of warfare, and they can lay siege to whole cities, and they can destroy space fleets just based off of sheer animal magnetism, not because of like individual competence, but rather,
I would
yeah.
say, just for the sake of subtlety, the volume of animal magnetism, but yes, exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. Um, and then is there a backstory as to why the orcs are besieging this particular city, or is just that they're the one of the sworn main enemies of the Imperium?
It is not revealed in Hell's Reach, but there is an answer to that question, and I'll go ahead and I'll spoil it to you. I'll spoil it to your audience. It is because elsewhere in the setting background, elsewhere in the setting lore, it is revealed that this planet, which the Imperium of Man calls Armageddon, is
Mm.
actually the Orcish origin world.
Oh, it's like a secret space to them. It's like,
Now, the orcs
yeah.
don't understand that because they've just lost that in their culture. They don't know that anymore, but they feel the animal draw to it.
Mm.
And the Imperium doesn't know that anymore because of other setting hand waving that's covered in different book series. But
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like in the original Dawn of the Dead, there's that one scene where why are the zombies attracted to the mall? It's like, well, there's something inside of them still that's like they're almost like drawn to it. And even though they don't understand, it's like there's something there.
right.
So
It's
that does make a
exactly
lot
the
of sense.
same deal. The orcs don't know it's their home world, but it is. And that's why their invasion fleets keep getting drawn there.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, but then of course, like the Hive City has to be kept up at all costs. So the Imperium, they're not going to like, there's no diplomacy here. There's no like land acknowledgement. I mean,
No, not Warhammer. There's not.
there's no there's no truth and reconciliation councils in Warhammer
No.
40k.
The
um,
Truth and Reconciliation Council is what team brought more guns.
yeah, pretty much. So then the story progresses, and there's this one final apocalyptic battle. And so, yeah, go through the nuts and bolts of it. Like, what exactly happens after things simmer down between the princess and Grimaldus? Yeah.
So from that point on, where we're at is that orcs have overcome the outer walls. They are into the city.
Mm-hmm.
The princeps and the battle suits are trying their best to destroy the orcish walkers, the orcish mechs and war machines, which are done up stylistically much more primitively.
Mm-hmm.
Until one of those finally destroys the princeps and the last imperial battle titan, at which point the Black Templars fall back to the Church of the Emperor Ascendant, which is the religious district of this hive city.
Mm.
And here the Templars meet an interesting set of characters. The Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, the
Yeah.
gun nuns of the setting, people who are at all into Warhammer, and maybe even just the people on the cultural right will have seen the memes, will have heard the jokes. They're the gun nuns of the setting. And their leader, begins asking Grimaldus, well, if you are so faithful, why did you not fight here from the beginning? I can see the doubt in your eyes. Let me bless you with this holy water, and it will clear this doubt from your mind. And that is interesting in the context of the Black Templars being these, they're literally brainwashed into emperor worship, right? That is the whole thing of their Space Marine order. And this guy has been newly promoted to their head morale officer. He should be the most zealous of them.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about Grimaldus's character, both in Hell's Reach and in other novels featuring him, is he's this naturally melancholic warrior, and he has this thing where he tends to be a little bit of a doubter without ever actually losing his faith.
Yeah.
He commits regularly one of the cardinal sins of the entire setting, in that he just can't help but ask, well, what if, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm using the word baptism. It's the wrong word for this. She blesses him with holy water there in this church. And as orcs are continuing to pour into the city, him and the last of the Marines that came with him, the last of his battle brothers, are fighting to hold this church until eventually the church itself collapses on top of them from orcish bombardment.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end. The church has collapsed on top of them. And you come to find out in the ending, Grimaldus survived, 2-3 human soldiers survived, and they cheer him as the hero of Hell's Reach because the orcs left, despite most of the hive having been reduced to rubble.
Yeah. And then it's discovered that the orcs are just going to come back, and it's like there'll be another unit of Space Marines there, and it'll just go on forever and ever without end. Like, it's just...
There is only war.
Yeah. But there's also like a spiritual significance to the literal church collapsing in on them in a weird way. But
yeah, there absolutely is, right? It's the continuing ongoing commentary. Yes, you were brave. You held your ground. You fulfilled your oath to defend Hell's Reach. But did it do you any good? The temple collapsed on you. It's gone now.
Yeah. But I guess there's no real, in this universe, there's no real room, I guess, for doubt or iconoclasm or a sort of, even though Grimaldus, like in the beginning of the film, his men are doubtful of him because he does have these almost pious crises of faith that there's just no room for in this universe. But Grimaldus, because of his unique insight or his leadership ability, sort of can kind of get away with it. But I know at certain points his men become resentful of him. And so was he right at the end, though? Like, is almost like there's no point to it, or it just doesn't matter, and war is the mother of all things, and that's what your existence is?
That's an interesting question, right? And that's one of the things that, in this case, the person watching, for the book, it's drawn on the reader. for the people who go out there and play 40K like I do, the player to determine, was he right? By the end of it, he walks away, his faith unshakable. He's overcome his own doubt, but he overcame it in the ashes of the hive that he swore his oath to save.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me, was he right? Was he wrong? If he'd been a little bit stronger earlier on, would things have turned out differently? Was that how it was always fated to happen? These are the questions you are deliberately forced to wrestle with.
Yeah. But in a way, though, it seems like it sort of defies, like not that it takes a lot of things for granted, but it very much is unlike a lot of sci-fi films, like especially sci-fi films of recent years written by libtards, where it's like there's always like this crisis of mission, and my super special unique way of doing things is correct, and no, the world itself is wrong, but I am right because I'm a I'm a
to your point,
individual.
Warhammer is a conscious rejection of all of that, right? You have a duty. There is no hope. There is only war, but you still have to get out of bed and go fight that war.
Yeah.
And that is the core concept that drives at least the human-based factions.
Yes.
Every other team kind of has their own motivations. But for humanity, there is no hope, but there's also no excuse to lay down and die either. You don't get to opt out. You don't get to do it your way. You are told to pick up your gun and go fight for the people around you.
Yeah, it very much is like the Bhagavad Gita. Like there is duty, and the duty rings forth throughout the cosmos. And there really isn't like I'm a lyrical miracle special individual. Like it's more, like
yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Now go shape those ration packs.
Yeah.
It's real cool that you're great with that paintbrush, bro, but you're late for your shift at the paint can factory.
Yeah. And so there really is but what's the sort of like role of the humanities in this universe in terms of like art and literature and all that? And like it seems like there is a lot of ornamentation, but they still serve a very stoic purpose of either emperor worship, or well, not emperor worship, but rather the worship of the imperial religion. And the design seems very like a lot of the design in Warhammer 40K seems very fantastical and complex, but it's not the same, I guess, as there is no such concept of ornamentation besides what is like an object of worship or what is the furtherance of the greater mission of war. It seems like everything is utilitarian to its core. Everything serves a purpose. Yeah.
That's interesting, right? Because the aesthetics of the imperial culture, of human culture in Warhammer is twofold, right? It is absolute brutalism.
Yeah.
And you see that in the design of the hive cities. But then you see the ornamentation of the churches, both, for instance, in Hell's Reach and in other places in the lore. And it's clear that aesthetics do matter a great deal to them.
Yes.
And the entire imperial religion is a memento mori to the god emperor, who they believe is alive on earth, sitting upon his throne, protecting them spiritually. And he is, right? But the thing that we know on the meta level as consumers that they don't know is that the emperor's body is dead, right?
Yeah.
He is physically dead and spiritually alive, protecting them in the fourth dimension of hell. But what is sitting on the throne of earth is just his physical corpse.
Yeah.
So the entire imperial religion is extremely ornate, but the extent of its aesthetics is an ongoing commentary of memento mori, and everything else is a brutalist, flat-edged design hell.
And when it comes to these space marines in these mech suits, apparently it's like a kind of hellish existence, because say you die in battle to only then go through this weird zombified form of reincarnation where you are planted in a suit, your soul is entrapped in another Imperial machine. And so potentially a lot of these soldiers could live on for hundreds of years, but then I guess they degrade over time and their sort of souls go awry. Yeah. How does that work?
What you're referencing is not seen in the Hell's Reach fan film, but it's the concept called a dreadnought, right?
A dreadnought, yeah.
The armor that any given Space Marine wears is just your stock generic sort of sci-fi power armor, right?
Yeah.
It's got a power pack on the back of it, and it takes whatever you can already do and magnifies it that much further. But if one of these Space Marines, because the Marines themselves are such works of technology, such works of science, and because so much goes into the genetic development of one, if they are so badly wounded that, you know, a normal human would just be left to die or even intentionally put down as a result of their injuries, the Space Marine is kept alive instead, and it is put in a life support tank. And that life support tank is then installed under the armored panels of a walking tank called a Dreadnought.
Yeah.
And the life support system that keeps the Marine alive inside these walking tanks explicitly causes psychosis. So they have to be put into artificial coma in between deploying these walking tanks.
Oh my God.
There is a line in Warhammer, right? Only in death does duty end.
Right.
And fans love to throw that around because it goes extremely hard. Like, that's just a banger of a line.
Yeah.
But the subversive joke of that, right? And if you're clued in, you get this and you dig this. This is what makes it heavy metal. These Space Marines aren't allowed to die.
Right.
If they take a mortal wound, something that should kill them, they just get dumped in a life support tank, and then that tank is installed in a walking tank. Only in death does duty end, but you will not be allowed to die because you still have a duty to do, even if it drives you insane inside an artificial tank chassis.
And so you don't go crazy like in the rare time there's a rest period, they have to just shut you down through a coma. Like, again, it's a very like hellish utilitarian existence. Like your sole purpose in life is duty, and that's it. And it's like, even when you're on the verge of being relieved of your duty, quote unquote, it's like, no, bro, you're gonna live for another 100 years in this monstrous psychosis suit, and it's like you're a tank now. What am I? What am I doing? Yeah. No, but like nobody can. Like, again, I think normal human morality or the normal human picture of the self is so fundamentally, maybe in the Western world, like we've developed to such an extent that, there's that concept of the denial of death, right? Where it's like our individual existence supersedes anything. And so even to the point of denying our own mortality is to fulfill some kind of like unique subjective existence. But in this universe, none of this is a thing. Like, you have one purpose in life, and that's it.
Maybe this is a hot take, but I'd go so far as to say that even honor and duty obsessed cultural right wingers cannot actually comprehend this level of devotion to a cause.
No, never.
There's too many special snowflakes even among us. Not one of us would last 10 minutes in this universe.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And I think that it is almost something that reverberates to very ancient warrior cults. Like I mentioned, the Spartans would be the most ready-handed example. But it seems like as humanity goes further into the galaxy, we don't encounter glorious luxury space communism. We encounter the opposite. We go back to the ancient feudal warrior cult. And it's like a return to the primitive in a very stark way, to the point where even death is not something that prevents you from your duty as a Space Marine. And it's like, that's insane. Like, nobody could really comprehend that. Like, really, like, just think about being that for 5 minutes and the pain and suffering. And because what I've heard is that if you're in a dreadnought, you're still in a state of incredible pain and anguish.
Yeah, it keeps your body alive, but it doesn't kill your nerves. So whatever mortal killing wound you took to get you put in the dreadnought is still agonizing you, and that's what causes the psychosis when you're installed.
Thank you for listening to the Content Minded podcast. If you wish to support me and listen to every episode in full, then please go to patreon.com/giantairproductions and substack.com/Geo's Content Corner. There you will find the full archive of every Content Minded episode, as well as every Giant Art Review episode, and exclusive to all patrons, the weekly Cole Report, where I break down interesting stories and discourse from throughout the week. Subscribe today to keep the content renaissance alive.